Gravity Rush is a title that got a lot of love on the Vita. It was one of its best titles. Obviously Sony agreed and they have decided to make a sequel, this time though on the PS4 and the Pro, even though it was announced quite a few years ago now, 2013, and it has gone gold way back in November, but it wasn't released around this time because it wouldn't compete with AAA titles. Which, although does make some sense, it's not really been a ram-packed exclusive season over the period of PS4 and probably even Xbox One. So this could have released in December, I think, and still got some sales in for that pre-Christmas treat. But if you are waiting, then there is a demo available on the store which you can download right now and see how it plays. The title's origins come from the Vita and its 2012 release, which had a re-release on the PS4 at the beginning of this year. Sadly, since the Vita's untimely death, this is a PS4 and Pro release only. Due to this hike in memory and hardware allocation, it means the city is far denser and more diverse than what we saw on the Vita machine, but it's still the same game at heart, using the cel-shaded technique which used in the original game, which probably wasn't invented by Jet Set Radio, but it was certainly popularised by the Sega Classic. Even having a similar feel to the city itself, with a diversity in its characters and makeup, and certainly the cast in the game itself. Both Cat and Raven return along with the other characters from the first game. Here, rather than collecting spray cans across the cityscape, instead you use diamonds and pieces of meat that can be stolen by nearby pigeons. Just hate when that happens. And the game itself shares very much from the original title, with you using your gravity-defying powers to float, fly, and basically fight everyone in your existence and increase your powers and skills as you go. Weird morphing characters appear throughout the demo, and the game itself is very tightly packed to just really give you the feel and functionality of the controls. So there's not that much to see here, but you do get a feel of how the game plays out. There are two options in the demo though, with beginners and advanced, with the advanced course being a much larger and longer demo with more to see, so do play it twice and try them both out. Just like the Vita original, this is a 30Hz title, and on the PS4 it is targeting 1080p. It may use a dynamic solution, but I'm not counting anything lower than a full native 1920 by 1080 for multiple counts in this demo. And on the Pro we are also looking at a 1080p title. There is no super sampling here at all on a 1080p display. Plugging it into a 4K display mine gets you exactly the same resolution. Yes, there is no increase here on the Pro mode in this demo. Now the game is stated to have Pro support, and it does have some which I'll touch on in a moment, but I would say this is a bare bones Pro mode, which is basically compiling a Pro binary and then using it to run the best that they can on the hardware before they optimize it to some of the benefits that the hardware will give them. This means you get slightly better performance, but pop-in, LOD, distance, texture filtering and resolution are all identical, including shadow map filtering, than the standard PS4. Which brings us nicely onto the performance of the title. Now running it in 1080p mode on both machines here for the test, the game itself still runs 30 FPS, which I'm sure many people may be tricked to think it's actually 60 FPS because it is incredibly smooth and fluid. A lot of this is down to the superb motion blur per pixel and velocity based here that actually samples very highly and cleanly to clean up and smooth out each frame and image, which delivers a very smooth and crisp controls throughout play. This is helped further by a double buffer solution running on the actual render output, so you do get dips though below the 30 FPS at certain points. Some of these come from context loading and obviously streaming issues from the CPU as it loads in at certain points, and these dip on both the Pro and the PS4. I'm inclined to believe that most of the performance issues in the games and hiccups come from the fact that it is a CPU bound rather than GPU bound. That's not to say it's not stressing it heavily, and the game does use an abundant use of physics and destruction in the game, which is very impressive. You can create some real epic moments, which we'll see later in the demo when I stress test both versions. But predominantly when you're doing like for like comparisons like you see on screen, the performance metrics is pretty much identical. You wouldn't really call much between the two, but when you stress the engine and try it harder, I think what we're really seeing is that 30% CPU overclock just clawing back a little bit of performance that the PS4 is lagging behind, which can see ultimate dips down to 19, but that was a one-off on the PS4, with the Pro coming in around 25 FPS at its lowest point. But again, these are really rare. The game fundamentally holds on to a 30 FPS lock target quite consistently, but when you get into the heavy action, which includes all of the aforementioned particle effects, destruction and physics, with very dense AI characters, there's a lot of people roaming around the city which all react in very batched and grouped together scripted actions. It still pads a lot of use on both the CPU and the GPU alike, and this can cause a few dips. but over and above that, it actually holds a very solid 30. Certainly through travel and traversing over the cityscape and long draw distance, there's no issues at all. It is, like I say, very smooth and clean game due to the temporal anti-aliasing used and the aforementioned motion blur, and it does look very clean in action, but slightly softer than what you would expect from a standard 1080p display. It's a very pretty and chaotic game, and I'm looking forward to the final pro benefits that I'm sure will ship with the day one patch once the game releases in January. Now, I will have more footage and coverage of far more pro games and other titles coming up very soon, including more top 10s on what the Pro offers and stuff and games I'm looking forward to in 2017, along with more coverage of VR titles, PC titles, and much more. Now, this is the time where I actually have some time off of work, but I do have to spend time doing my own thing as well, so I'll try and get as many videos as I can up and stashed so that I've got some for future releases and I can get a more consistent flow of titles. I do have a lot of promises and things in the work for 2017, so please stay tuned to my channel and my website for more information and action on that. And if you do like this or anything else that I put together, then please feel free to support me by subscribing and sharing and liking if you did. Leave all your thoughts and feedback below. You can catch a few more minutes of footage of the frame rate analysis here on both the Pro and PS4, and I'll see you very soon on the next one.